It's been around for centuries, and it has power over hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions.
It's demonstrative and rigid, but can allow change. Do you know what it is?
Hi, I'm Sid. Welcome to Democracy Rules. Did you get state government? Then you got it. State government is the body that regulates the operation of the state, separate from national government. This system is called federalism. Do you know how federalism works? Let's see what some of you have to say.
Hi, I'm Shavela, and we're here talking about state government. What can you tell me about federalism?
Federalism, I used to know, but then when I stopped taking government classes, I forgot.
Well, federalism was the original form of government before the foundation of the Constitution. Without federalism, we would not have our government today. Originally, it was the amalgamation of states coming together, sitting down in one room, and dividing the power amongst themselves in order to, come to a greater understanding of how our nation should be run.
Actually, federalism divides power between national government and regional governments. In our case, the states. States are still subject to national authority, but they can't enact and enforce any other laws without the consent of a higher power. As a result, our state governments have power and influence in our lives. Let's go to our resident expert, Senator Les Miller, for perspective on that. Senator?
Thanks, Sid. I'm pleased to have my good friend, Florida State Senator Victor Chris, here today to talk about our state government. Senator, thank you for being here. First of all, let me ask you why you decided to get involved in state government.
Well, Les is a little non-traditional. I grew up in a family of activists. My mom had a medical background, donated her whole life to free medical services to the poor, and my father, a retired military officer, decided to fight to protect our pristine coastlines. So I grew up with an activist environment. When I came to USF to go to school, the conditions for students off campus were deplorable. So I organized students to collectively bargain with their landlords and with the faculty and staff at the university, and the organization, the Off-Campus Housing Association, got me kind of involved on a personal level in community activism. But it wasn't until '92 when our board of directors, all of us put our name in a hat, and an elderly man said a prayer over that hat and pulled a name out, and one of us, that name, had to run for office to represent the community. And it was my name, and that's kind of how I got into politics. And when I got elected to the Florida House, which I didn't think would happen in a district only 31% my party affiliation, and but it did, it put me in the arena to be able to work diligently on the issues that really mattered here at home.
I remember that very, very well, very, very well. What scope of authority do states actually have?
States have a lot of authority. I mean, our U.S. Constitution gives the federal government the ultimate authority in making general law. But that general law is just kind of like a guideline that states work within. And the states' government have a lot of latitude in creating laws that local governments and people at home really live by on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. How does state law impact students?
Oh, it impacts students the same way it does everyone else out there. It's the laws we live by on our day, every day. Whether it establishes the drinking age, it establishes the age to drive a car, it establishes the curriculum in the schools, the credit hours that they have to achieve in order to graduate, what transfers, what doesn't transfer. Just about everything that a student has to do or does do on a daily basis, there's some state law or some rule or regulation that deals with it.
Now, I probably know the answer to this because you and I went in the legislature at the same time in 1992 and then the Senate in the same year in 2000. What has been your most rewarding experience as a state elected official?
Working with you on our community issues right here at home. You and I share many of the same passions. Our fight to improve education so that everyone has an opportunity for the good life. We both know that the good life comes with opportunity and with education in order to ensure that our students here at home have access. or even adults that need to go back and retool for a new trade or a new vocation has access.
Exactly.
I think that the projects I've done in the areas of education and self-growth for the general public have been the most rewarding for me.
And you've done a great job with that, Senator.
Thank you.
Florida has been experiencing a budget crisis in recent years. How are our state budget reductions affecting students locally?
Well, the economy's down around the world. I was talking to some people from Europe, and I was hearing the same horror stories that we're facing here in this country. I know today and yesterday and the day before we've read in the papers that there were businesses closing that we use and are accustomed to going to on a regular basis and never thought would ever shut down. But because the economy has slowed down, businesses doing less business, there's less money to go around. Government's no different. We don't print it in the state level, so we have less revenues coming in. Less revenues coming in mean we have less to spend. Less to spend means smaller budgets. Smaller budgets mean cuts and reductions. So, you know, that's kind of how it works.
Exactly, exactly. We're going to talk more in a few minutes, but thank you so very much. We'll talk more about how state issues affect all Floridians in a few minutes. Back to you, Sid.
Florida was granted statehood on March 3, 1845. Its population was 57,921. And that's a fact, Jack.
The state's constitution is its supreme law. It establishes the structure of state government, plus many other rules and rights. Let's start there.
I'm online at myflorida.com, a great resource for all things Florida. Under Government, go to Our Constitution. The first article is a Declaration of Rights, just to reiterate and guarantee those freedoms at a state level.
Reiterate, to state or do over again.
Our state constitution establishes our government in 3 branches: the legislative, executive, and judicial. Sound familiar?
Of course, all 3 branches are important. But the state's legislative branch is the engine that drives the rest. Let's look at it first. The legislative branch is the lawmaking body of government. Its job is translating public will into public policy, the very policies that control and guide the overall function of the state.
I searched Florida state government and found this great site with summaries of each branch. Scroll down to legislative branch for some quick basics. Here we go. Our legislature is like Congress, a Senate and a House of Representatives. Sessions are only 60 days long though, unless an extension or a special session is called. 40 senators serve here in 4-year terms and 120 representatives serve in 2-year terms. Check out these websites for more info.
The qualifications for senators and representatives are simple. You must be 21, a registered voter, a state resident for at least 2 years, and a resident of the district where you're elected.
Our state legislature can enact any law that doesn't conflict with national law or our Constitution. It also has approval power over some official appointments, can overrule a veto, and has the power of impeachment. No wonder it's considered the most powerful of the 3 branches. Don't worry though, the other 2 have power to keep it under control.
Our Constitution also allows voters to have a direct say in lawmaking with initiatives and referendums. In an initiative, constitutional amendments and ordinary laws can be brought directly to a vote by the petition process. In a referendum, a legislative proposal is submitted to the voters for final approval or rejection. A perfect example of a successful initiative is the amendment to reduce Florida's class sizes. Let's check in with Senator Miller for some details on that. Senator?
Thanks, Sid. This is a perfect example of the initiative process affecting student lives. Senator Chris, in 2002, Floridians voted and passed the class size amendment. How did this initiative originate?
Well, there's been several measures that have been implemented to work with education and educators to take a look at what could improve the quality of education in the classroom. The educators did their research, came back and said, well, first thing is smaller class sizes, that the number of students that they've had to work with had grown over the years and become nearly unmanageable. So there was a citizen initiative. They went out and collected over 811,000 signatures. They were able to get the measure put on the ballot for constitutional revision. The general public voted about, I believe, 52% or more supported it. It became law by Constitution, and the legislature over the last 5 years have had to work to slowly begin to implement it. It has to be in place by 2010 for the 2011 school year. To date, the legislature has appropriated a little over $10 billion to begin the implementation of the process.
It's been a very touchy situation, and that amendment itself. But how are students directly or indirectly affected by this amendment?
Well, like a knife, it's got two sides to it. It will cut both ways. The positive side is a smaller class size means better access to resources. It means more resources to go around. It means more exposure, more one-on-one with the instructor, more individual attention. Those students that learn quickly will be able to move quickly. Students that learn slower will be given opportunities to pace themselves and work with the instructor and the materials. From that perspective, it's very positive. The cost is the negative side of it. It's going to be extremely expensive. Like I said, we've spent over $10 billion over the last 5 years just getting ready to implement it. We're looking at probably another 10 or 13 billion before we're done in the implementation of it by 2011. And since money is getting more scarce and we don't print it, it's going to mean cutting other things of value in order to fund it. It could mean less before and after school programs and activities that students have grown accustomed to and expect.
Has each and every district in the state reached their numbers, or are they close to reaching those numbers that they need to reach in 2010?
Some districts are pretty close to reaching it, others are not. I know that the state is working diligently to get everybody at a point where the transition into 2010 for the 2011 school year is smooth. But like any other major revision or reform, there's kinks that have got to be worked out.
Now, with the FCAT, there's a debate that there's a measure there to show how well a student's doing and not doing with the test. I know when I left the legislature, there was debate of how well students were doing and not doing because of the class size amendment. Is there any measures out there that's showing that the students are doing much better because of the smaller class size, or they're not doing it? Has there been improvement or not been an improvement? Is there anything out there yet telling that story?
I've had educators come and visit with me to show me that from their individual school district studies that smaller class sizes are beginning to show improvements in schools. That schools that were, let's say, D schools are moving up to C and B schools. As far as a state study, I'm not aware of any. That doesn't mean that there may be one, but I'm not aware of any formal state study that's been done.
We're talking about constitutional amendments, and sometimes the language of amendments can be confusing. How can a citizen become better informed about the initiatives on the ballot?
Well, go online, pull up the full amendment and read all of it, because you don't get a chance to read the whole amendment when you get to the poll to vote on it. You get a definition or a brief explanation, and those explanations aren't always very clear. Sometimes you're fortunate enough to have a newspaper that might report on it or editorialize on it, but again, in order for you to have the real facts and draw your own conclusions from your own intelligence, I suggest that you read the amendment, and if there's any part of it you don't understand, contact your local legislator,
Exactly.
your local House member, your local senator. Ask them to explain it to you, because that's what our job is to help you understand what your state government is doing for you.
And with the cutbacks, newspapers are cutting back on the amount of information they put in there, so it's important that they contact you and get other sources to answer those questions for them.
Absolutely. Even the newspapers are experiencing the cuts.
Oh yes, exactly. It's vital to our democracy to have educated and informed voters, and you're there to help do that, and we appreciate that. Sid, tell us more about how the state of Florida is organized.
Okay, Senator. Let's move on to our executive branch, the governor and the state administration. This branch administers and enforces the laws of the state.
I'm looking at the Florida Constitution for executive branch specifics. It gives supreme executive power to the governor and makes the position chief administrative officer of the state. It also establishes a lieutenant governor and a cabinet with an attorney general, a chief financial officer, and a commissioner of agriculture. Section 5 establishes qualifications and 4-year terms for these elected positions. These qualifications are simple too, but winning credentials are experience, party affiliation, name recognition, and effective media skills.
Since 1925, there's been 27 female governors and 4 African American governors. None have been in Florida, and that's a fact.
The governor has many roles: administrator, legislator, party leader, public opinion leader, and ceremonial figurehead. He or she is very influential in the legislature and can call special sessions to address specific issues. The governor can also veto bills and exercise executive clemency. It's easy to see how a capable and dynamic governor is an influential official that people look up to for leadership.
Executive clemency, the power to pardon or reduce the sentence of someone convicted in that jurisdiction.
Of course, checks and balances keep the executive branch aligned too. Even the voting public can be watchdogs. They can remove a governor from office with a petition procedure called a recall. Only 2 governors have ever been recalled, in North Dakota and California.
What actions could cause voters to recall a governor?
The lieutenant governor is selected by the governor and they're elected to office together. The lieutenant governor works with the governor and succeeds to office if it is vacated for any reason. The cabinet also shares the responsibility of state operations with expertise in 3 important areas: legal issues and law enforcement, fiscal management, and agriculture, which is a big part of the state's economy.
Fiscal, of or relating to taxation, public revenues, or public debt.
This theme of elected officials guides the state, often influencing public decisions. A good example is the passing of Amendment 1, the Tax Reform Amendment of 2008. Let's check in again with Senator Miller. Senator?
Thanks, Sid. Senator Chris, the cabinet consists of the governor and 3 other elected state officials. What is the role of the cabinet in Florida state government?
Well, the Florida cabinet's a lot like a corporate board of directors, and the governor is a lot like the chief operating officer or the CEO of that board. Each of the cabinet officers have a certain jurisdiction that's under them, whether it's the attorney general with the legal matters and law enforcement and public safety, or the comptroller who's financial matters and insurance. But each has their responsibilities. They have a lot of power over their area of responsibility. I mean, ultimately the governor has the greatest amount of power because the governor kind of oversees all the operations. Their job is to carry out the laws the legislature creates and to implement the budget that the legislature directs.
How much power does the individual cabinet members have?
They have a lot of power. They have a lot of influence. You know, with the general public, it depends on their following. You could have a cabinet member that is very widely known and respected, that would have a lot of influence over the general public, or you could have a cabinet member that's not known and doesn't have a lot of following.
And sometimes people don't know who these cabinet members are, and it's important that they get to know, because they're very important and powerful people in the state and the jurisdictions that they do cover. No.
Yes, and it's difficult to get to know a cabinet official because they run on a statewide basis. For the most part, large constituency groups are engaged in their campaigns. It's not as grassroots and as community-driven as, let's say, a state house or a state senate races.
Exactly. How much influence do cabinet members have with voters on questions like the 2007 Tax Rollback Amendment 1?
They could have a lot of influence. I mean, we have a governor that's respected, has a large following, and when the governor takes a position on an issue, people are going to listen, and that's influence. We have cabinet members who have high-profile positions and strong followings. When one of those cabinet members takes a position, you know, a large segment of the voting population, which is their following, could follow suit.
Is there any time that the cabinet members disagree with each other?
That happens. and it happens more often than people realize. And, you know, sometimes those disagreements can slow the process down because there's only 4 of them. So, you know, you get 2 cabinet members that disagree and, you know, things stop until you get agreement.
The cabinet members, we know the governor is term limited for 2 terms, for 2 4-year terms. Are cabinet members term limited?
Yes, they are.
They're term limited for the same amount of time?
I believe that they're 8 years.
8 years. So every 4 years, these cabinet members come before the public and we vote for them. And many times we don't even know who they are or what positions they are.
From time to time that happens.
And they make some very difficult decisions.
Very serious decisions.
And it's important that our voters, especially these young people, start to realize that there's a cabinet there and the roles that they play. For instance, we talk about the Commissioner of Agriculture, and people don't realize that agriculture is a $15 billion commodity to the state, and the authority that cabinet member has.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, the Commissioner of Agriculture oversees more than just agriculture.
Exactly.
Also oversees business and industry regulation. Any professional who's licensed in this state. There's a lot of. They also, you know, you take the comptroller. He oversees the money, or she oversees the money, but also oversees insurance and banking.
Exactly.
The Attorney General, legal affairs, and public safety.
Yeah. So those cabinet members are key players in our state government. Thank you,
Very
Senator.
much.
Thank you, Senator. Sid, back to you.
Thanks, Senator. The third branch of our state government is the judicial branch. Interpreting and applying state law is its job.
State Constitution time again. Article 5, Section 1 says the judicial power shall be vested in the Supreme Court, District Courts of Appeal, Circuit Courts, and County Courts. And that's exactly what we have today. We've looked at these courts and their jurisdiction in detail with the U.S. court system. Today, let's look at some other aspects of the judicial branch.
The principal role of our courts is to decide disputes by applying the law. Judges are responsible for interpreting the laws and applying them uniformly and fairly. In addition, judges exercise the power of judicial review to determine the constitutionality of governmental actions. While a judge's responsibility is far greater, we have a responsibility to the judicial system as well. That responsibility is to willingly participate in one of our most basic rights, the right to a trial by jury.
You can only protect your liberties in this world by protecting the other man's freedom.
Serving as a juror is an important part to our judicial process. By design, juries are safeguards to fair trials, with judgments being made by our peers. So who can serve as a juror? I'm online at Hillsborough County, Clerk of the Circuit Court to find out. Go to Facts, then Jury Services. Who can serve is one of the questions. Let's see. If you're 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, and a resident of Hillsborough County with a driver's license or ID card, you can.
Jurors are notified by a summons, an official written notice to appear for jury duty. And it is that official. You can't just decide not to go. You may be excused from jury duty for a few reasons, but you have to be officially excused.
I'm sure you've got lots of other questions, and most of them will be answered in these facts.
Do you think juries are an important part of the judicial system?
Each of the branches of government have specific duties, powers, and restrictions, all designed to create a state government to serve the people, but not to oppress them.
Through the elections of public officials and the power of initiatives, referendums, and recalls, state government is still government for the people and by the people. Let's check in one last time with Senator Miller for his perspective on that. Senator?
That's right, Shavela. And the people's involvement in government is the basis of our democracy. Senator Chris, let's talk about the opportunities for residents have to get involved in their state government.
Well, there's a variety of different ways. First, just pick up the phone and call your elected official. Write or email them one. Other ways are get involved in campaigns, working side by side with someone to get them elected or going for re-election. Joining professional organizations, PTAs, student groups, student organizations, Classroom Teachers Association. There's a variety of different ways for educators and students to get engaged and confront a legislator.
Exactly. Why is it important for young people to get to study government and get involved locally on a state level?
Well, it's very important. You know, I mean, legislators are lawmakers. They make the laws by which everyone, including students, have to live by on a day-to-day basis. And you know, you may have a difference with a law that you may have to live by and want to see it changed. You may want to influence the creation of a new law. There's a variety of things that you could do as a citizen that you should do. We have an evolving society. The United States was founded on the basic principle of representation and access. If you don't use it, you lose it. And it's important that as the country grows and as time passes, the citizens voice their opinions and their opinions be heard so that government grows with the population.
And it's important, you mentioned one thing about getting involved in political campaigns, and we're talking to basically young people today. How important is it for young people to understand how a campaign works, get to understand a candidate, and get involved in a political campaign?
It's very important, and it's a lot easier than one would think. A lot of times it's just, you know, taking a look in the paper and seeing when there's going to be a rally, show up and look and listen and ask questions, get to know the various candidates, see which one that you most closely align with, and then volunteer. Candidates are always looking for volunteers. They never say no to a volunteer.
Definitely. Always important to have that person out there, especially a young person that comes in and can do so many things and understand the process and learn something about this process. That's probably how many of us that were in that legislature got involved in doing that. Senator, it's been a pleasure. I thank you for being here with us today, and it's good talking to you. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Les, for having me here today. It's good to see you, and I look forward to working with you in the future on new ideas.
Very good, Senator. Thank you so very much. Sid, Shavila, time to wrap it up.
Thanks, Senator. Well, let's look at state government. One more quick fact. Our government activity is open to the public. For more info, search Government in the Sunshine.
Remember, democracy rules, and you rule in a democracy. See you next time.
Democracy rules!